spending money is a lot more difficult than saving it.
Hello, I'm Dan Richards. Welcome to Money Insights. Today I'm talking to Moshe Milevsky, professor in the Schulich School of Business at York University. Moshe is somebody who's done extensive research on retirement income, has written on this topic, won awards, has written books, The Retirement Calculus of Income. Moshe, today I want to talk about the timing of returns in retirement. Most Canadians understand the direction of returns is important up or down, but you've done some research that suggests that the timing of when you get returns is critical as well.
It is, especially when you look at the retirement phase as opposed to the pre-retirement or accumulation phase. The term I like to use is sequence of returns. When you are investing money and you're holding on and you're buying and you're holding, the sequence of returns really doesn't have a very big impact on the final outcome. What that means is you invest $1,000 today and you hold on for a couple of years. Whether you get the bull market first and then the bear market or it's reversed, you really end up in the same place. It's basic mathematics. But when you get close to retirement, and specifically when you start to withdraw money from your account, the order in which the returns occur have a very, very big impact on how long the money lasts, and disproportionately so. It's almost shocking how big a difference a bull versus a bear can make around retirement. That whole area is called sequence of returns risk, and I think it's something people should become very, very aware of as they get closer to retirement.
So this is an issue for people in retirement. If I'm 25 or 30, it's not going to affect me that much.
It's less of an issue because you can mitigate sequence of returns risk. And by that it means if you're 10, 20, 30 years away from retirement and we go into a prolonged bear market, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to work longer. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to save more. You have the levers early on in the life cycle to adjust to a very bad market outcome. Once you're in retirement and the human capital, what economists call your labor potential, has gone down, there is no human capital, you don't have the ability to work harder or extend your retirement date, the market becomes the driving factor, sequence of returns becomes extraordinarily important.
So Moshe, you've added this phrase, sequence of returns, to the vocabulary of Canadian retirees and investors. You've added a second phrase as well, which is retirement risk zone. Tell me about that.
I don't think I can take credit for naming anything, but the word retirement risk zone deals with the fact that there's this period of time, a few years before you retire and a few years after you retire, where the behavior of the market will have a disproportionate impact on the success of your retirement. So usually, whether we had a bear market or bull market at some particular phase of your life really washes out in the long run. As we know, in the long run, the equity markets tend to move up. But if something goes wrong in that period of time called the risk zone around the retirement, it has a very, very non-linear, is the word mathematicians use, to describe how long the income is going to last.
Suppose that, I've just recently retired and I've had the misfortune of having my investments do what most investments did last year, which is decline dramatically. Can I make up for that, compensate by saying, okay, so I'm going to cut back on my spending to try to make up for that?
I don't really think you have a choice. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic investment product that's going to put you back where you were 18 months or 2 years ago. One of the many things you're going to have to do is to revise your standard of living downwards. What I also think is that anybody that's experienced this has an obligation to tell people that are 5 or 10 years away from it what they've gone through and do something now to protect themselves against it. So I think that people that are approaching this zone, that's seen what happened, you never know this might happen to them as well, do something about it, talk about it, take an action today to avoid it.
So in light of the retirement risk zone and the impact of sequence of returns, what are the kinds of specific things that Canadians approaching in retirement need to consider and think about doing?
Well, I'm a very big fan of pensions, and I think that's something that is boring, and many of my undergraduate students at the university don't really get very excited about the notion of a pension, but I think it's something that a lot of people should aspire to. If you have a solid pension from your work, your employer provides you with a pension, you don't have to worry as much about these things we've been discussing, sequence of returns and risk zones. If you have a pension, it'll provide you with a dignified standard of living with CPP for the rest of your life. For people that don't have that pension, that are relying on RSPs and their discretionary savings to generate a retirement income, all these things we've just discussed lead us to the need for more pension products. So at first, I would say people should have conversations with their advisors about how do they pensionize some of their retirement wealth.
Last question. I know that you've worked and you're working with some financial institutions in Canada, Manulife and Bank of Montreal, I believe to name two. What are the kinds of things that you think the industry needs to be doing to address some of these issues?
I think that the first step is to acknowledge that this is different. And I know it's a scary word, and a lot of people are skeptical of anybody or anything that gets up and says, this time it's different. It's not so much the time that's different, this stage of our life is different. People that are approaching these retirement years have to take a very, very careful look at their asset allocation and their product allocation and make some changes. You've been on autopilot for 20 years, you've been saving 10 or 15%, you've been putting it into some sort of investment, you've been doing that, you've gotten used to it, and I think it's time to get unused to it and think about how to do things differently. I always tell students that spending money is a lot more difficult than saving it. Some people listen to that and say, that's odd. Isn't saving difficult? Say, saving is almost automatic by the time you get to retirement. You're doing it every month. You leftovers. Once you get to retirement, how much should I spend? 2% of my nest egg? 5, 10? The orders of magnitude are much larger. It's a difficult decision how much to spend. Some people hoard it. Some people spend it down so quickly. We need new technology, new language, and certainly an awareness that as retirement approaches, things are different.
Moshe, thank you very much.
Sure.